Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you. So last night,
So last night, what?
I helped you
You didn't help me do anything.
beat the whole table
You did not help me.
at Hearts.
I was doing just fine beating the entire table.
No. I purposefully sacrificed my cards so that you could win to appease you.
To appease me. You tried to overthrow the entire card game. So when Abby and I were playing cards with our friends Marcus and Bree, as we have game night together all the time. We like to have game nights and just play cards together. And
Marcus and Bree, who are here, you guys can say
Yeah.
hi.
Oh, yeah. Hi,
We're
everyone.
not just talking about us playing cards.
But I was sitting there just playing just fine, beating Marcus pretty much at that point.
Well, actually, I was winning the whole time until the last round, so that's not true.
That's not true. You got a couple cards.
Listen, are we all going to argue about who was winning?
That's
Let's
the
get
point.
to the point of the story.
So Abby jumps ship on her
because
seat.
my seat was cursed.
And mine.
Really,
You
the men
can't-
were beating the women is
The
what was
men-
happening.
But it wasn't like you knew the cards were bad because it was like 0-0, 500, 500.
You don't get up in the middle of a poker game and go, my luck's down. Please trade me a seat right now.
No, but you might get up in the middle of a poker game and decide my seat is cursed. I'm going to quit playing in this seat
No, then they
and wait
quit.
till you come back later.
No, they don't. Have you seen World Poker Championships?
Well, not in the championships, but like if you go to Vegas.
So
Anyways, we are delighted to have Marcus and Brianna here with us today.
we really are.
They're some of our favorite people, and I asked them on for a very specific purpose, and that is to dish us the dirt.
Ooh, the dirty dirt.
The dirt. They have been married almost 2 years now. I married them.
And if any of you guys have listened before, you've heard them on the podcast.
Yeah, and it's an awesome podcast. So if you haven't, you should listen to them. Basically, we're going to have them on throughout this podcast multiple times because they're really good at learning themselves, getting self-awareness, and figuring out how to work through their painful moments with each other. Every relationship has them, and every
do.
relationship has these things. And what I'd like to say is we all have these buttons in our life that don't make sense, where we have huge emotions about something that doesn't feel logical.
Yeah.
So I might have huge emotions about Justin in the Hearts game, but it's really because it relates to something deeper.
Her heart.
Her real heart.
Yeah. Hey, Dad.
The real game of hearts.
It's a real game of hearts. But so what happens is when you get a lot of people together, often one person has huge emotions about something that is illogical to the other people. Like, it doesn't make sense. Why are you having big emotions about this? To which everybody wants to invalidate the other person's emotions because we're all a bunch of fixers on the planet. We don't want to be around people who've bad emotions because who hurt us the most in our childhood? People with bad emotions. So we want to get out of like anybody feeling anything negative as soon as we can. And so we tell people like, well, it's just not logical for you to be upset about this. Oh, it's just, it doesn't make sense for you to like, you don't need to feel that way about this. But shutting down people's emotions never actually solves the problem. It's kind of like whack-a-mole. Like if you shut down their emotions.
Goodbye, emotion.
Well,
You're dead.
If you shut down emotions like you whack the mole, it comes up in another hole.
Yep.
It just keeps popping up until sometime it overwhelms you and beats you.
That's so true.
It sure does.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about it. And what I love is in marriage and relationships, friendships, brother, sister, mom, dad, parent, kid relationships. The goal is not to judge why other people have emotions. It's to seek and understand what's going on under the surface that is bringing those emotions up. So like, I know I work with me and Justin are life consultants.
Yep.
And we work with people, helping them overcome issues. And this is probably one of the biggest things we help people do is figure out what's actually going on underneath the surface that is causing me to act and behave this way. We created the Compassion Project as a series that people can do online to help them start to learn this process of what's going on inside of me and how can I heal from it so I don't keep taking it out on the people around me.
So I don't destroy the world in front of me by setting it on fire with my emotions.
Justin, have we had any triggers in our life?
No, not a one. Our whole first beginning of our marriage was just one giant trigger. It was just us having one explosion after explosion about nothing that was right in front of us.
Yeah, it was explosions, but we thought it was about.
Yeah.
I thought for sure it was about you.
Yeah.
And you thought for sure it was about.
Well, I mean, it was about you. I mean, when we look back, you were the problem.
Definitely.
And that's the biggest thing inside of triggers. And this type of thing is that we believe that there's a villain inside of our story. And as long as we have a villain inside of our story, we never actually get freedom. And we have to be willing to let go of the villains inside of our heads and ask, how am I my problem right here and right now?
Okay, this is what you say to all of your clients.
Oh, well.
You make them repeat.
Yes. When I have couples come into my office or an individual coming in to talk about their spouse or their significant other, I write this phrase on the board and it says, my spouse is not my problem. I am my own effing problem. I'm like, read it now.
Read it out loud.
Again.
And
louder.
And it's hard to swallow.
Yeah, it really is. Because all of a sudden, that means that if there's not a villain, I'm the reason for my problems, I have to find solutions. I can't just push people away anymore. Mm-hmm. If someone's the villain, I can just keep them at distance. I can keep pushing them away. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's exhausting. It's destructive, and it never is a solution. But now all of a sudden, I have to be readily taking ownership for my life and finding solutions if I am my own problem. And then I have to feel the pain of the reality of the problems that I've created.
Yeah.
Because if I am my own problem and I have all of this pain, then I have to grieve. I created that somehow.
Yeah. But the beautiful thing is if you take ownership for it, you can change it.
That's true.
And that's the thing where people feel trapped in circumstances, relationships, emotions, because if you don't take ownership for, oh, I have shame issues, then you can't change. Like whatever you own, you can transform.
Yep.
And whatever you own, you can get loved too. So as long as someone else is your problem, they need to change for you to be able to be loved.
Yep.
And if I can see it in me, then I can invite you in to be with me in that. So for me, a lot of it was I felt lonely all the time until I could take ownership over my world.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you can
so
take ownership of your own world, you can actually create connection with people, because it's so much easier to say, I'm having pain come up than say, you need to change because this is bothering me.
Well, it's not easier to say that.
That's true. It's so
more
much
invitational.
it's more connected. You're right.
To say, you're the problem.
It is harder.
I
That's why
misspoke.
everyone says it. But it's easier to create intimacy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to have you guys break down some of your communication. One of the things I want to say, whether you're single or married, this is utterly important, because this is what happens between bosses and employees. Every human you interact with, you are navigating their triggers and your triggers and trying to figure out what in the world to do to survive. And until you recognize that you're having feelings and they're having feelings and they're not always about each other, it will keep you feeling like you're a failure. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, especially when we have this understanding, this foundational truth inside of our lives that, oh, people are triggered, I'm triggered. All of a sudden, grace gets to enter in, compassion, mercy, understanding, sympathy, all of that start, and all the high stakes and the explosions that are happening inside of life all of a sudden start dwindling down, and they just keep lowering and lowering, because now all of a sudden I walk into a situation, I go, oh, it's not that Marcus hates me. It's not that he's a terrible human being trying to destroy me.
Right.
Most likely,
protecting himself.
He's in self-protection right now, and he's doing the best he can to survive the craziness inside of his heart or his mind that he's going through. And I don't have to wall up, self-protect. I can stay in a posture of love and see this thing through to some sort of healthy resolution.
Yeah. So with that long, beautiful opening that we just did, let's just jump on in. I invited you guys here because I'm going to have you guys share some stories. And so let's have you guys start with a story that I think is really relevant right now in the world, but also to so many people, which is about you navigating emotions around sickness.
Yeah, I think sickness has been a big one for me and Marcus in our relationship because I just get sick a lot. I get sick like once every other month probably with some sort of flu and have always been that way.
And when she says get sick, like I want to paint a picture because this has been a doozy for me because I did not grow up with people who got sick a lot.
Marcus is one of those people who's like, I think I coughed once in middle school. That's the last time I was sick.
It is like, I might have had a headache this morning. Do you think that's the flu? And she's like, I don't know, but you're fine now.
I had a headache this morning.
And so it really has been like confusing for me and confusing because I'm really logical. And so I feel like, why am I triggered that she's sick? I wasn't around any sick people. So it has a bunch of floating pieces. But when she says sick, it's like, we're doing normal life. And then one day she's like, I think I have a headache. And the next day she's in bed for 4 days. Like, not like an invalid, but like
takes me out
of it and really sick and loopy. So it's like, did my wife just leave for 4 days? Like, what happened?
Oh, yeah. She instantly did leave for 4 days.
Yeah. So
what I love really quick is that you mentioned, and this is what happens, is when we've never experienced something, it's very easy to judge.
That's true. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I mean, that was my background even coming into the relationship with you. I had a pretty harsh judgment just because I watched everyone power through stuff. I mean, my mom, 3 days after back surgery, I think, or something, she was up in almost a 3/4 body cast, hobbling around in the kitchen making breakfast.
I always like picture it. It brings me joy. Because she's so cute and short, so she must have like looked like a Oompa Loompa.
Totally. So I mean, Oompa Loompa. But I totally understand that. Like, you just don't have context and you don't know what to do with that because you think like, yeah, but we're all fine, right? Like, just get over this.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, that was a struggle with coming into marriage because growing up, got sick all the time. And I think I had this like romantic notion in my head that when I got married, I would like have someone to take care of me while I'm sick, someone to be with me, someone who would be like so excited to meet my needs. And then I got married and I have this amazing husband, but he just doesn't have a lot of like experience with sickness and doesn't understand it. And so we've had a lot of tension come up where it's like I get sick and I need things and Marcus will feel like maybe a little edgy or almost like he's mad at me or...
I don't notice it until she says, hey, how are you? I'm like, I'm fine. Why? And she's like, are you mad? Like, what do you mean by mad?
Yeah. So I think this has been a reoccurring thing. I wanted to specifically talk about last week. I got...
But wait, before you do that, I wanted to just mention something. Something you said was... I imagined all my life that I'd marry somebody who just wants to take care of me.
Yeah.
I want to say that because most people have imaginations like, oh, when I get a best friend, they'll do this.
That's so true.
Or
they'll meet my needs.
Unmet or like unsaid expectations. Like you probably never told Marcus, here's my expectation of you that you will take care of me in all of these ways when I'm sick if we get married.
So he's shocked and totally caught off guard. Like,
he's
why are you
blindsided.
pissed? What do you want out of me? You were supposed to be my knight in shining armor.
Yeah. So true.
So, and then I want to set up before you jump into this specific one so what you're saying is Marcus sometimes gets triggered just by you being sick.
Yeah.
And then he starts to act a little, how
edgy.
Would you describe it?
I think he will act a little bit like distant, edgy. If I ask him to do something, he'll feel overwhelmed quickly because he's having his own pain come up. Yeah, was just
okay, but you're not always aware of that.
sometimes I'm aware, sometimes I am not. Usually it will be like 2 days later, I'm like, oh, I think I am frustrated.
Yes, I want to mention this. This is so important in learning about self-awareness. Because I remember with Justin, I would ask him when we got married, I'd say, it feels like something's up. It would take him 2 weeks. And then he'd be like, oh, I really have these feelings. I
had such a crazy disconnect. Mm-hmm. And it's like that for a lot of people.
Yeah.
These ones are hard where for me, if I'm having huge emotions, like if it feels like this is so big, then I know, oh, I'm triggered.
Yeah.
But when so growing up for me, a lot of times my triggers look like I'm fine. So my family was like in chaos and parents are fighting. It's like, oh, I'll just be okay. Yeah. So I can unconsciously swing into that where it's like, oh, she's sick. It's fine. I'll do the dishes. I'll clean the house. I'll take the dog on a walk. Like I end up going into fixer mode.
Yeah.
And 2 days into fixer mode, I'm like, this is so weird that I just deep clean the house on Wednesday night. Like that's not my normal Wednesday night routine. How bizarre.
But you know what? I'm mentioning it because most people's triggers they're not aware of.
Totally.
I would say most of the time, even if they're grumpy or angry, a lot of times people don't recognize something's going on in me. Like most people don't. So you being able to reflect and this is what I'd love to challenge you. If you have people in your life to actually, because I can't tell you how many times it's other people who've taught me my triggers. Like I have a baffled trigger. When I'm confused, I have a reaction that is quite visceral.
You come across a little bit like a condescending asshole.
Yes, I really do. That is true. But I didn't know that until people started telling me that was what was happening.
They're like, are you angry? Are you being condescending? Why are you being so aggressive? And you're like, I'm not.
Right.
Or I have been on the other end of that trigger.
And you were part of the way that I learned that that's how it came across, to which Justin was so glad.
He sighed.
Yeah. Because on the inside, I wasn't feeling angry. Anyway, but the point would be that allowing her to say like, hey, is something going on in you? And then you self-checking is a really important part of self-awareness.
Yeah, totally. Which usually I'm even in that moment like, I don't think so. But it's like, it's enough of a spark that I'm like, okay, I'll at least consider it as an option.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we've set the stage, go ahead and tell about this specific.
Yeah. Okay. So last week I got a doozy of a sickness, which was interesting in the middle of the whole COVID-19 outbreak. There's already a lot of fear around sickness.
Yes.
We're all, wearing face masks to the grocery store and trying to stay as healthy as possible. And I all of a sudden just got hit with this high fever. I'm in bed. I can't move. I don't really know what's going on. And I think for me, often when I get sick, I will instantly feel triggered with being out of control with my body.
It's very real.
I'm trying to do everything I can to help myself. I'm drinking tons of water. I'm in bed. I'm taking supplements every hour. I'm doing everything. And my body's not getting better. If anything, getting worse. So I already am in this triggered state of I'm trying so hard. Nothing's working. I feel like my body's failing me. And I think I even just had a heightened fear just because of the context of, is this corona?
Right.
Do I need to quarantine myself from Marcus? Am I going to be totally alone? And it turns out I ended up having strep throat, which I have no idea how I got it, but I was really relieved. But it was just the whole week of feeling all of this fear and uncertainty of not knowing what was wrong with me. And I think I have a tendency when I'm sick to another one of my triggers is feeling really alone. As a kid, I felt really alone a lot and really isolated. And I think actually as a kid, one of the ways that my parents would love me was they always showed up for me when I was sick. They would take care of me, coddle me, get me snacks. And so I have this big fear of being alone. And I have this expectation of when I'm sick, I'll feel loved because someone will actually come and meet those needs.
Right.
And so I think even it's an interesting thing being more aware of your triggers because it's easy when I'm sick to feel like I'm alone because Marcus isn't meeting my needs.
Yes.
I'm alone because he won't do this thing for me that I need him to do. When actually I'm learning to own even in the midst of sickness, I'm alone because I have years of pain from childhood and it's not about him.
And it's really an emotional flashback
yes.
of the aloneness that you felt. So basically, we're in life circumstances all the time, and something happens that reminds us, and all of the emotions from past situations
flood us.
Yeah.
And it
then,
feels very like you're in that moment.
Yeah. And then our brain is trying to rationalize why we're feeling it, and it's looking for someone to blame.
Right.
Absolutely.
For a justification.
Or a circumstance. Why am I feeling
this is why
this
it's
alone?
happening. He's walking away from me.
Yeah. He's walking away from me when he should be taking care of me. You're the reason I feel alone.
Yeah.
It's like those are the surface level emotions in the moment. If this guy was taking care of me, I would be fine.
I would feel so good. I'd be living the dream.
Yeah. And I think like it's an interesting thing because we've been through this like sickness trigger loop a couple
every
times.
2 months for 2 years.
Every 2 months for 2 years. So we're more aware of what the symptoms of our triggers are in it, but it still got me last week. It got me where I felt like, no, I'm pretty sure Marcus is the problem. I'm pretty sure if he would just figure it out, I would be fine. Even to the point where I think at the end of last week, I had a sobbing meltdown where I was like, I just feel so alone because you're shut down. I feel so alone because you're not meeting my needs. And I had to actually like get to that big breaking point, recognize this isn't about you, and process through those triggers so that we could be together in it.
Yes. Which I want to just mention this because every couple has the thing that they'd go rounds on.
Yes, 110%.
Like there's like a couple. Ooh, look at you use my catchphrase.
I said 110%. It's Justin's new catchphrase.
Okay. 110.
110%.
But so every couple has these spots in their relationship that they do rounds on. Yeah. And it feels very circular.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to feel defeating if you look at it the way you just described, that you have more awareness and now you have better language. So typically you're moving forward in this area.
Yeah.
So
I like to think every time it comes up, maybe we're getting like 5% healthier with it.
Yes.
Just a little bit better.
It is. Mm-hmm. Okay, I just wanted to mention that.
I was curious. Can we have her elaborate on a little bit of what she did to actually deal with her trigger?
Yeah.
Because I think that like you're sitting down, you're realizing maybe this isn't about him. How did you kind of start processing through that?
Well, I think that we both have a really good foundation of looking at our triggers together. And so I think for me, the point where I was able to actually connect and be like, oh, I'm triggered is literally after I was sobbing and accused him of not being with me. And Marcus's response is, I'm trying so hard. I'm trying to connect to my feelings. I'm trying to process them so I can be with you. And then it was like just seeing the fact that he actually is in pain and he actually is trying. It like turned on the light switch in my head where I was like, oh yeah, maybe this isn't because you're bad. Maybe there's something else, something else going on here. And so I think for me, it was just getting to that light bulb moment. And then I've been around like I've built the habit enough of checking in with my heart. And I know that feeling alone and feeling out of control are both triggers for me. So then I was able, I think because I have that history of knowing, oh, these are issues for me.
Yep.
I was able to all of a sudden see, oh my gosh, this is the same trigger. This is the same thing that's come up before. I've dealt with this over and over. I couldn't see it before, but now I can. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to, honestly, I mean, I was an emotional mess and I was like 102-degree fever and out of it. I just like sat there on the ground and cried for a while and then was like, Marcus, I can see that maybe this isn't about you. Maybe I'm just
so relieved, Marcus.
alone right now.
It's funny because we're both at the same time having triggers.
Yeah.
Which is the
what
problem.
marriage is.
Yeah,
You
it's
start
what marriage
poking
is.
each other's buttons unknowingly,
Yeah.
and just it starts exploding.
And I always say that triggers produce triggers because anyone who's hurt you in your life, when they hurt you, typically they were triggered. Like probably like 80% of the time.
Totally.
Some of the time they did it without knowing, but lots of times the people who've hurt you the most were yelling or were reacting or were short or were
Absolutely.
disconnected from themselves or were disconnected from like, so we have associated when someone is triggered, you need to wall up and protect. Yeah. So triggers get you to trigger even if you don't know it. So it's a very vicious cycle in marriage. If we could have just one person at a time, it'd be fine.
Totally. Which sometimes we do have that. I'm like, this is the best.
Great.
Oh yeah, let me help you.
Right. I'll love you through this.
This is so
no
easy.
Big
But
deal.
when you're triggered, it's like, nah, lady.
Nuh-uh.
Not gonna happen today.
Nuh-uh, lady.
Yeah. Our explosions happen when one person's
No.
pain pushes on the other person's pain.
Yes.
And it's great. Well, the great thing is that often Marcus's pain won't push at mine. And so then I can be there with him easily in it. And I can be
Totally.
like, oh, I'm so sorry you're feeling that way. Oh, what does your heart need to hear? But it's those moments where his pain pushes on mine where I'm like, well, F you. That's you're horrible. And it builds that in me. And so it's actually like figuring out how we can be together when we're both in pain and on the same team when we're both in pain, even if we can't help each other to fix it.
That's massively key, is to pull yourselves, try and find out how to pull yourself out of survival mode.
Yeah.
And get into, like you said, partnership.
Yeah.
How do we become partners right now? How do we see each other, that each of us is in pain that doesn't have anything to do with each other, and have enough compassion to go, all right, you're hurting too. We're in the same boat. Let's fight through this instead of fight against each other.
Because here's what, and I'm going to have you share, Marcus. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but something that Brianna said that I thought was so great was like, oh, I guess you're not bad or you're not to blame. What happens is when we get triggered, we completely lose sight of the character of the person and the nature who we're with.
True.
So like Marcus has a history of looking at his stuff and fighting to get to your heart.
Right.
But when we're in pain, we only see what someone's not doing or how they're not loving us. And then we can't see who their actual history is, which is why you can love somebody really well. And then after a couple events, they can completely turn on you because they can lose sight of who you've been.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to help people understand.
I think that's really good. And one of the things when we're not in triggered states, I actually have clients do this, or couples, where they'll write a list of the true nature or character of their spouse or significant other or their best friends.
Yep.
So that like they have a list, and then when everything feels like it's falling apart, they can go back to it and go, all right, what's the reality? Okay, this person is gentle and kind. They're honest. They're forthright. They actually try really hard to get connected to me, whatever it happens to be. And so once they can do that, it can ground them.
Yeah.
Even tether them back to truth and reality. Go, okay, this is their nature. Let me go talk to them from that space. Hey, I'm feeling an explosion inside of me, and I feel like you're these things over here, but I know this is actually the truth about your character. Help me understand. In fact, Marcus has done that a couple times with me and stuff, right?
Yeah, tell about that, because I think it's good for them to hear this affects other relationships.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
not
I
just
was literally
marriage.
thinking earlier when you were introing, I was like, oh yeah, I know that every person in this room is for me and loves me, and I have been massively triggered by all of them.
That's true.
So true. The people that we let in closest trigger us the most.
Because they get the closest to the places where pain can exist.
Yes. So what have you done in your relationship with Justin?
Well, even like this past week, I've been working on, this is a bunny trail, but we'll go there.
Do it.
I've been working on sharing my feelings in the middle of process instead of like my normal fixer is like, oh, like, here's all my things and this was happening. And I'll make it look really nice that way when I share it.
This before I tell you
You
about
can't hurt me.
Yeah.
And so I've been working on sharing in the moment. And so this past week I was like, oh, Brie and I had this fight that we're talking about. And I shared, Justin, I'm being triggered. And this is the trigger I'm having. Love to process it. Because I'm like trying to do it.
Right.
And then Justin had like a week of just stuff. And so it was like, he didn't respond for 2 days. I was like, just following up. Is there a time to talk on the phone?
Oh.
And then he didn't respond for a few more days. And he's like, we can chat later. But then didn't call me.
Oh.
And I was like, I know
What
I
a
can feel the
dick.
feelings of.
What a dick.
I feel the feelings of like,
God, that's the best.
see, it doesn't work. People don't want to take care of you. This is just like growing up. If I share my feelings, people will abandon me. They'll turn against me. If I have feelings in the moment, it'll be too much. And then people will like choose out.
Yeah.
And I knew this is my, like, I could tell these are triggers. Logically, I saw him on Instagram doing his voice recording of his book. I'm sure he's actually more busy than normal. And so like I knew all of the logical truth. And so I did both. I wrote out, this is who Justin is. And these are all the things. This is who I know him to be. These are the things he said to me. This is how I know he values me. And so I had the story of what I know is true. And I still validated my emotions because
Yeah.
they're actually from growing up.
Totally.
So I felt my pain, wrote a story for who he is, and then we followed up and talked about it.
Yeah, and then you told him that.
Yeah.
And were you a dick?
You mean in how I responded when he told me?
Yeah.
I don't know. Was I, Marcus? What did you think?
No, he was kind. He heard me. I explained it. I've learned enough that I'm like, you're not to blame for any of my triggers. We can talk through maybe next time if you could
Could you do this?
say,
Right.
hey, I love that. Thanks for
crazy week.
sharing.
Yeah.
It's a busy week. So I was like, I both knew there are triggers happening and I'm going to share it, but I don't expect him to fix it.
Yeah.
And also there are relational things we can do to meet each other.
Right.
Yeah.
So I even was like, practically, you're right. I'm really sorry. Acknowledging is helpful in any situation because we have that close of a relationship. I'm feeling like I'm sinking right now, but that doesn't mean I can't actually go thumbs up and say, hey, thank you. I'll follow up at the end of this week. It's crazy. Like I could try and get my words out and use them. And I want to figure out how to do that when things are this crazy. And so there's an adjustment that I want to make relationally, not because I have to, but because I love Marcus and I want to participate in healthy communication, not just fix the fact that he feels horrible. Like, and I, in the past, would have felt super responsible for him feeling horrible. And I would be like, oh no, I'm failing him so bad. What's wrong with me? And I was like, yep. He's having big emotions. I love him. I'm sorry if I've actually hurt him in any real way, but I'm okay with him spiraling out over there.
Yeah.
Where otherwise I would have been overly responsible in the past.
And then if you're overly responsible, you might have actually felt so much shame you would push him away.
Yeah.
Because you feel like a failure.
Totally.
And now you don't have to do that.
Nope.
Great.
That was that's a good interlude of you guys working through something.
Yeah.
You apologizing, taking ownership.
And I think probably
validating
for
it.
him, it didn't feel like I was saying, you're the worst. Because I understood these are my triggers. I'm sharing them with you. There's still invitation to like, could you try
me here.
this?
Yeah.
But it's not I'm mad at you. You ruined everything. You don't care about me.
Right.
Right.
And so there was invitation for him to show up because trying to beat someone's you're the worst is actually really hard to like show up
How
there.
do they come back
Yeah.
from that?
Totally.
Because as soon as you say someone's the worst, their defenses are up.
Yeah, because literally, like he's saying, you literally told me, I know these are my issues in these ways. I'm being triggered. So you even preface the conversation with, I know I've been working through stuff inside of my heart, which I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not being vilified right now. That's awesome. And then I actually have a space inside of me where I was gentle and compassionate, trying to figure out like, how can I love him in this? So
Yeah. Okay, so Marcus, we're gonna jump back to you and your triggers with her being sick.
Yeah, so there are a lot. The big one, there are a few things that I was thinking. One is one of my biggest triggers is feeling out of control because I felt as a kid, there were a lot of parts of my family that felt really out of control. And so I didn't know, how do I get connection? How do I get love? How do I get peace and rest in an environment that feels so like chaos to me? And so control felt like the thing that protected me. And so in control often looks like fixing. So for me, it's like, how do I find a solution? Because if I can find the solution, then maybe mom and dad will stop fighting. If I can find the solution, then maybe mom will want to be happy with me. If I can find a solution, maybe dad won't be mad. And so then he'll want to play outside instead of yell and scream. So I'm constantly, as a kid, looking for where's a solution to fix the thing so that I get to be okay. So that
if I can fix you, then you can meet my needs.
Totally. Or if I can fix the environment, then I can actually be fine.
Right, because nothing's going to happen to me
I'm not-
externally. You may not
nothing's
meet
gonna
my
happen to
needs.
me.
You just won't be exploding at me.
You just won't be killing me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that is a huge trigger that's just been a bunch of different areas, but it showed up here with, I feel really out of control when she gets sick because there's nothing I can do. So it's like there's this external thing happening that directly affects my life and I have no power over it.
And I even think when I'm sick, it's like more responsibility is put on you because all of a sudden you lost the teammate for cooking dinner, for cleaning the house. And so all of a sudden you have double the responsibilities and I'm just gone.
Which I would say this sickness with this time was different, where a lot of times I've worked through the I feel alone trigger,
Right.
which is connected to this one, but this felt way more like I feel out of control to what's happening to you.
Right.
And it's directly affecting me. Now, it does make me feel alone, but it felt less like the I feel alone trigger and more like
I'm powerless.
I feel out of control. There's nothing I can do. I'm so powerless.
That sounds like you would never be able to relate to that, Justin.
No, I don't know. I don't know what he's talking about at all.
Are you like trying to figure out what that could
yeah,
feel like?
what is that?
And then it's interesting. I actually processed this with a friend, but with Brie, because she was like, it feels like you're against me. Like it feels like you're actually mad at me. And my logic is like, no, I'm not mad at you. Who's going to be mad if the girl got sick? Like, I'm like, no, I'm not mad at you. Like, you have a strep. Like,
Totally.
there's my logic, very like adult logic is like, no,
Right.
she's sick. She didn't do anything to get sick. Her body
Yeah.
has a lesser immune system. This is just what's happening.
Right.
I'm not mad at you. But then when I process through it, it's actually the kid in me does feel like there's nothing I can do to make this better. It's the kid who's trying to make mom and dad happy.
Right.
And that kid actually might be a little bit pissed. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm trying. Why aren't you happy? Why aren't you better?
Totally.
And so I was like, oh, babe, I might be projecting mad. I'm not mad at you, but the kid inside that feels really scared, you might be feeling that.
Yeah. Which I think is that's such good self-awareness, because what I found in my own life is wherever there's pain, we immediately want to blame. So I know for me in sickness, one of the things that I have seen is when things feel horrible in my body, sometimes when it's a lot of pain, my first emotional, because I've worked through this, I've processed this on the podcast before about accusing God. And I think that it was a good process for a season until I recognized it was actually about my parents. And once I could recognize that, it changed it. But now I have this emotional rut. Whenever my body's in a lot of pain, I can sometimes just feel my emotions want to go to blame. I want to blame someone. I want to blame something for why pain is. And what I found for me is actually, so now what I do, and it has really made a difference, is when I'm in a lot of pain, I'm like, no, I'm just in a lot of pain. And blaming doesn't get rid of it. Like, I think we think if we can blame, it's like tossing the pain off of us. Like if pain is like a hot potato, like if I can blame Marcus for this pain, then I can get the pain away.
Yeah.
But so for me, it's like, no, this actually is just painful. And I need to learn how to feel pain. And I need to be okay with it. And blame is me trying to deflect it. But actually, if I just hold the hot potato, it will cool down and I'll be fine. And then and it will actually create less wreckage, less chaos. Totally. So like when I blamed God, it actually created a disconnect between me and him. And it created more pain and more frustration. Now that I don't go to blame, I feel it. And then I actually can just release it.
Totally. Which I think that is something I'm intentionally working on. In not specifically with God, but more in the way of I check out of the emotions and the pain and the problem.
Yeah.
And I try to find the solution.
Right.
And actually, if I could just be present with myself and with Brie, if I could be present in my own emotions, then I could be present with her in sickness. Mm-hmm. And so it's not even like it's my actual system with myself.
Yeah.
And it's showing up with her sickness.
Yes.
Because in other areas, I'm talking to Abby all the time, like, I still feel shame. Like, this is so crazy. She's like, well, what if you were just with yourself? I'm like, no, like, I should fix the shame. Or like, no, I should fix the sadness.
Totally.
Like, often my switch goes to how do I get the solution instead of how do I just be present in that moment.
Yes.
And that system that I learned growing up shows up with her in sickness.
Well, and I do just want to say this because most of us, the idea of just feeling the pain sounds crazy because what that reminds us of is our childhood where we were trapped in pain
right,
forever.
so it's just going to be inflicted on us and it's going to stay forever and there's nothing we can do about it.
So we think if we feel it, it's actually going to send us back into 18 more years of that.
Totally. And most of us when we were kids, we felt it without having someone be with us in it because our parents didn't know how.
Yes.
So the fear is it's going to feel just like that, even though it won't, because having someone comfort something is actually really beautiful.
Yes.
But what we imagine is what it was.
Well, the key that you said there was comfort. And a lot of times people aren't willing to let others comfort, right?
Yeah.
or they won't comfort themselves.
Yeah.
They don't know what does it even mean to comfort myself? What does it mean to let someone comfort me in the midst of this pain?
Which, if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know what they're talking about or how they use language like that or how to comfort myself, we made a series just for that. It's called The Compassion Project. You can get it at stumblconsulting.com. We want to help you with this.
That's hilarious.
Okay, so go ahead about
Anyway,
your
yeah.
trigger.
So I got to that point of realizing this isn't about her. This is my pain thing out of control as a kid. I don't need to fix her. And so that's where I was like, okay, this is great. I recognize it. I'm going to call Justin, but he won't respond, so it's fine. And then I'll call, but I was like, okay, I have other friends. So I called 2 of my other guy friends and I just processed through my feelings about it. And I was like, I'm doing so good. I'm not running. I'm processing them. I'm trying my best. And then the thing is, when you actually do with your trigger, you can still do some of the same things, but it's not out of reaction. So it's like, actually, this dishes still need to get done. And actually, we still have a dog that's a living being that has to be taken care of. And so if I can take care of my triggers, I can do that and not be bitter at Brie for it.
Right.
And so then I was like, okay, I'm doing these things. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to follow up with her about how everything's going because I feel like I'm trying really hard. And then I was like, babe, how are you feeling? And her response was, which I think she said earlier, but her response was,
This was our big blow up last week.
This was the one she started sob crying.
Uh-huh.
Because I was like, oh, I'm doing all these things. This is so awesome.
You're like, I feel like I'm killing it.
Yeah.
Winning.
I'm doing so good at owning my trigger and sharing with my friends and trying to be present in the emotions. And then I asked her how she's feeling about it while I'm sweeping to take care of our house. And she says, it feels like I'm alone because you still feel like you're not showing, like, I don't know what language it was, but basically like you're not showing up.
Yeah, something
Right.
like
Or
that.
you're not present.
Yeah.
And I literally, like, I was trying to engage and be with her. That's the point of why I was asking.
Right.
And I immediately went to like, F you.
Totally.
Like, it was just
I've
like
been
a
there
punch to the gut.
110%.
Where I was like, are you kidding me?
I'm over here going, I'm feeling so validated.
I was like, are you kidding me? You feel like I'm not showing up? I told my feelings. I told you it probably feels like sometimes I'm against you. I told you that I'm calling these people. I'm taking care of the house. I'm doing all these things. And what you're saying is, as hard as I try, you still feel like I'm not with you.
Oh.
Which one of my biggest triggers is I'm not enough. I'm trying so hard. It's not enough for you.
Which was your childhood?
Yeah,
which
which
was
is how
my
I felt,
childhood.
especially with my mom.
Yeah. I can't be enough
Yeah,
to make
it doesn't
you happy.
matter how hard I try. You
Yes.
guys still feel mad and frustrated.
You'll find something I did wrong, something that wasn't enough.
And then so I got triggered again. And like, it was like a snowball trigger effect where it's like, we're both triggered. And then I ask you a question and I get more triggered.
Well, and this is so true. This happens all the time. It's very relatable. If you're in marriage, you're like, yes.
Uh-huh.
One of the things I wanted to point out, this happened because when I work with couples, this happens all the time. If you try really hard or you're trying to be vulnerable, either one of those sets you up to have a huge trigger. Because if you feel like you're trying your hardest and somebody's still upset with you, it feels like, well, F you, there's no hope then.
I can't win. There's no winning.
Win. And then, or like if you're like, I'm trying so hard to be vulnerable and they don't respond well. Like I just see it in couples where like maybe one of them will take the advice that I gave them and they'll like try like, I'm going to try to validate this person, and they validate the person, but the other person's still stuck in their trigger. And so they don't respond perfectly. And so then they're like, well, screw you. None of this matters anyway.
Which is
then
kind
they have
of
their they are actually become worse than they typically are.
It's a little bit what happened. I was not ready for her to stop crying, but I thought like she said that. And then I'm sleeping and I'm like, oh, I can tell I got triggered. I shut down. But it wasn't like a level 10. So I'm like, okay, I can tell it affected me.
Right.
I'm going to share.
Yeah.
Brie, when you said that, I actually felt like I'm trying really hard and it's not enough. And I thought I'm being tender.
Totally.
I'm
Yeah.
sharing. I'm using
doing
the
the
good
right
tools.
things.
And she busts out sobbing. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I was trying. Like, I did not know that
I
was.
tried hard again. It's
Yeah.
not gonna work.
And she starts sobbing, and I'm like, I'm gonna put the broom down, I guess. Like, sweeping is over.
Sweeping is over.
And that's where she started sharing, like, she feels really alone. She feels like all of those feelings. And sometimes, this is one of those times for us where I'm with you in the sense of I care about your emotions and I want you to get love. I cannot be that person.
Right.
And we both felt
Neither
that
of
for
us
each
could
other.
meet each other's pain.
You
but
both
we
were like, I'm in so
could-
much pain. I'm
Yeah.
in so much pain.
The good thing is that we could get far enough along to recognize the tender emotions underneath the anger and
Yeah.
the blame and the this is your fault.
Which takes a lot of practice.
Yeah, which takes a lot of practice. We can't always get there.
Because anger and frustration and annoyance or confusion is much easier to feel than hurt and pain
Yeah,
and rejection
absolutely.
and scared and alone.
Yeah. And so in that moment, we could get to the point where we could both admit, oh, we're in a lot of pain. And then we could just be together.
So I think I even told her, I love you. I'm for you. I care that you feel alone. You should call your friend. Because it was just like, I
Which
really
people
care
would
about your
lose
feelings.
their minds if they heard that. Some people, you
Yeah.
should call your friend, because that would feel so dismissive. But actually, you were doing that for what reason?
Well, because I want her to get her emotions met. Like, I
Yeah.
actually care
Yeah.
she feels
No,
alone.
I don't have the capacity, and I'm not just throwing you off onto someone else. I literally don't have the capacity in this space.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think I've had to learn that that is his way of wanting me to get love and get my needs met. Because I think even on my end, it's easy to hear you should call a friend and to feel like, oh, well, you don't
I'm too
care.
much for
yeah,
you.
you can't meet my needs. You just think that I should go to someone else to get them met. But actually now I've learned to see like, oh, you're saying I can't meet this need right now, but I really want you to get love. Why don't you go call someone who can give that to you?
And I've had to learn to tell her that, because my normal, because I grew up really codependent in my family, is I'll just ignore all my feelings and I'll do whatever it takes to make you happy.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say this was like one of the biggest breakthroughs for us.
Yeah.
When you could say, I
Yep.
can't handle you processing this with me right
Yep.
now. I can't handle. And if you don't have.
Because I would finally explode, because I would give everything I could to the breaking point of it's exhausting
Yep.
me, and I'm trying my hardest, and it's still not
you were
helping.
pushing past your
My
own
capacity,
needs,
and it's
your
not-
own emotions.
And it wasn't helping in the sense of it's not bringing the solution.
It didn't fix me, and it just made it worse for you.
Right. And then all of a sudden I'm like, what is wrong? Blah, and I'm exploding, when I could have just been like, oh, this is all I have to give.
Mm-hmm.
You should probably call PT.
And when that begins to be, and it has to become a common language and common mindset.
Right.
And it wasn't a reaction. I wasn't like, go call this
You need to
person.
go
You're
call your
stupid.
friend.
It was
You're
more like
screwed up.
I love you. I told her, I love you. I care you're feeling this way. I can tell I can't show up there. You should call this person or this person, because I want you to have someone meet you.
Which that takes self-awareness. And that's one of the
Absolutely.
foundations to this entire conversation for everyone listening. Like, how do I get to that point? Well, it starts with self-awareness, being connected enough to your heart to go, oh, I can feel that bubbling, or something's coming up. Oh, I can feel that emotion of hopelessness starting to rise, instead of at the point when it's volcanic and you're just like, I feel such intense emotions. Go call somebody else.
Yeah. It was actually very loving of you to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what happened?
Well, then she went to the bedroom and sob cried to her friend. And I think I talked to someone about my feelings about it. And I don't even know if it was ever we came together and like walked through healing together. It was more like, okay, we were met where we need to be met, and actually we're okay.
Yeah, that's true. I was able to call a friend who actually really could show up for me and have so much compassion for what I was going through, and who could like really love me in the moment, which I know is Marcus's heart to do, but he couldn't do it in that moment because he was in so much pain. And so I actually was able to have someone else show up in love in a place I really needed it. And from that, it was more like, then I can comfort myself and I can get more love in because now my heart is open and tender and I'm seeing that I'm not fully alone. Like my trigger was starting to subside a bit. And so then I honestly just like, I think next time we were together, it felt like, oh yeah, the problem's behind us. We feel pretty good now.
Which this is one of those triggers where I'm like, I don't know if this is resolved yet. Like it wasn't like a,
Yeah.
Because sometimes we want to be like, oh, and then we got back together and everything's fixed and we're better now. And it's more like we feel connected and like we're for each other and like we understand each other's pain there. And also,
like you're not blaming
Yeah, like
probably
we
if they're gonna show
understand
up
each
again.
other a little more.
Right.
And next time I'm sick, we'll go through the whole thing all over again. But we'll be more prepared.
But you'll have more history of knowing he's for me and he's trying to work through his stuff with me.
Yep.
I'm for him. Like we're working on coming together.
And that's even going back to the idea of me giving people homework to write down someone's nature or character. It's even when you get through a moment like this, being able to write down what's the reality that happened the last time I got really sick and we had problems. Oh, his heart was for me. He loved me. He tried his best to participate with me. I found health and help through calling other people who weren't in the same space at that time, just going like, oh, there's solutions out of it. I saw what I could do, and now I can go back to it and go, I'm sick again. Where do I need to go? My notepad.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's it tell me? All right, here's our reality.
I was thinking about this and how, like, I think what we imagine love is that someone can trump their triggers on our behalf.
Right.
So like because I'm like, I've been in that situation before where I'm triggered and I'm sick and Justin's triggered. And I'm like, but you should trump your triggers because I'm in more pain because I'm sick also.
Yeah.
And it's the idea of like, you should be able to get over your issues and make it about me is a belief that I think a lot of people have.
Yeah.
In lots of different situations. And that's where oftentimes if me and Justin get it in a standoff, it's because we both think the other person should come meet us in our pain.
Yeah.
But the other person can't. It's when we both...
Why did you come love me?
Why can't you jump over your triggers and come be with me in my pain? Why can't you do that? So it's when we get to the place where neither of us can jump over that wall is when it feels like we're both stuck. And so what I love is you showed people, hey, there are ways out, self-comfort, self-compassion, having other people love us so that we can get back together over those pain hurdles.
And if you get your trigger met by someone, even when it's not your spouse or it's not the person you're triggered with, what happens when we're triggered is we go into our primal brain, which is like, I'm like a kid.
Yep.
So I feel like what do the kids do? They throw tantrums. When my trigger gets met, I'm no longer in the tantrum state. So now I'm like a logical functioning adult.
Yeah.
So when we both go separate ways to get our trigger emotions met, we can come back as two logical adults and actually understand each other.
Yeah.
So I can hear what she's saying now. I can understand her. I can see her point of view because I'm no longer an 8-year-old kid screaming.
Yeah.
I'm an adult again.
Yep, definitely.
Now, Marcus, you were recently a part of a series called, what was it called?
Oh, I was part of the series called The Compassion Project. And if you're trying to figure out, these people are saying all these things and comfort sounds so nice. I wish that I could comfort the kid inside of me. I would buy this thing called The Compassion Project.
Yeah. It's like cheaper than meeting with us. And I mean, like you get, it's like 13 hours of meeting with us, which is way cheaper than meeting with us for 13 hours.
True.
What a bargain.
And Marcus
maybe like
shares
a tenth of the deal.
amazing stories about the compassion of God in it. Go to stemvalconsulting.com. We will have Marcus and Brianna on multiple times so that you guys can learn how to dissect and work through triggers and pain in relationship. Thank you guys so much for coming. Do you want to?
Yeah, and if you got anything out of this episode and it touched your heart or you feel like, oh, this could help other people,
yes,
we just ask that you go rate, review, subscribe, and share via social media. Rate and review on iTunes. That helps get us out there where people go, oh my gosh, what is that podcast? And then it starts bringing healing and transformation to the world through those avenues.
Yeah, I can see everybody being like, spouse, you have to listen to this. Quit blaming me.
This might be for you. Yeah. Anyways, thanks for joining us, you guys. We love you so much, both of you. So
yeah, we love you too. It's so fun to be here.
Yeah. All right. Peace out.